I once was lost. Have you ever been lost? I mean, really lost. The kind of lost where you have no earthly idea where you are, where every street or tree looks the same. The kind of lost where there are no discernible landmarks to help you orient yourself in time and space. The kind of lost where you feel your heart beating a mile a minute and your thoughts are a jumble of scenarios and possibilities. Have you ever been lost? I mean, really lost. The last time I was really lost happened in Venice, Italy. Gary and I were determined to see a large cathedral that we saw from the distance, and it was on the other side of the canal which runs through the heart of the city. And if you know anything about the geography of Venice, the streets are very narrow and the buildings are tall, so that it's hard to get a perspective of where you are. Then there are confusing signs that point to landmarks and plazas. And often you'll see two signs pointing in the opposite direction that somehow mysteriously take you to the same place. The good news is that after a few failed attempts, we found a footbridge that helped us to cross the river and arrive at the cathedral. The bad news is that the cathedral was closed by the time we got there. Further bad news came when we tried to leave by a different route. To make a long story short, we got completely and totally lost. We were out of the tourist area. We ended up in a residential neighborhood where every street looked exactly the same, and the directional signs seemed to lead us in a circle. We tried not to panic, but after about 20 minutes of walking, the river was nowhere in sight, and we had no earthly idea where we were or what direction we were heading in. Furthermore, what few people we encountered only spoke Italian, and so of course they weren't much help whatsoever. By the grace of God and sheer determination, we finally found the canal that ran through the city. And once we found that essential landmark, it was easy to discern what direction we needed to travel in order to get to our hotel. But by this point in the journey, we were completely and totally exhausted. We found a stop for a Vaporetto, which is a public water bus, and breathed a sigh of relief. Well, the unexpected bonus in our journey from lost to found was that we were so late, we were treated to a sunset over the city that we sort of went into with the boat. And it was beautiful, this gorgeous red sky and twinkling lights, and all the buildings were all lit up along the waterway. We were once lost, but then we were found. Trust me, I prefer being found over being lost any day. And in our gospel lesson, Jesus had a few things to say about being lost. In fact, there are 3 stories in Luke 15 about it, 2 of which are our gospel lesson for today. Ignore the context of this passage, which is the Pharisees and the scribes complaining about tax collectors and sinners. The setting of the story has more to do with Luke than it does with Jesus. Matthew says that Jesus was with his disciples when he first told this story, and I'm inclined to believe that that was his intended audience. Whatever the case may be, as Jesus tells the story, he says to his audience, imagine being a shepherd with a flock of 100 sheep, and you're ready to tuck them in for the night in the safety of the sheep pen, but you notice one is missing. Would you leave the 99 and go searching after the one who was lost? Probably not, but God would. God would go out into the night and diligently search for the lost sheep until it was found. And when it was found, God would carry it back to the safety of the sheep pen. Then the great shepherd would call together neighbors and friends from near and far, saying, rejoice with me, for I have found my sheep that was lost. Is this practical? No. Is this reasonable? No. But does God put the other sheep in danger while searching for the lost one? Maybe. But God is like that. God persistently and relentlessly seeks out those who are lost. Then imagine being a woman who had 10 silver coins you saved up for a rainy day. And one day as you were counting them, you noticed one of them was missing. Would you begin a frantic search for the lost coin and look in every nook and cranny until it was found? Probably not, but God would. You might wait until it turned up eventually, but God would diligently sweep the floor and lift up every seat cushion. God would root through every drawer in the dresser until it was found. And when it was found, God would call together his neighbors and friends from near and far, saying, "Rejoice with me, for I have found my coin that was lost." Is this practical? No. Is this reasonable? No. Is God wasting valuable time because the coin would probably reappear on its own? Maybe. But God is like that. God persistently and relentlessly seeks out those who are lost. The problem with Luke's telling of these two stories is that their meaning depends on a contrast between the sinners and the righteous, between those who are lost and those who are found. However, as I said before, this is not how Matthew tells the story. Matthew's version looks like this. Jesus told his disciples, "What do you think? If a shepherd has 100 sheep and one of them has gone astray, does he not leave the 99 on the mountains and go in search of the one that went astray? And if he finds it, truly I tell you, he rejoices over it more than the other 99 that never went astray. So it is not the will of your Father in heaven that one of these little ones should be lost." You see, I believe that Matthew gets at the heart of the two stories found in our gospel lesson. Truth be told, it's never about the righteous versus the sinners. It's never about us who are found versus those poor, miserable wretches who are lost. We may be able to put on our game face every Sunday morning. We may be able to dress to the nines and greet everybody warmly, but let's be honest. We're all a bit lost most of the time. Some of us work jobs we don't like in order to provide for our families. Some of us still don't know what we want to be when we grow up. Some of us struggle with illness or chronic pain that zaps the strength from our bodies and spirits. Some of us have such big to-do lists this week that we just want to collapse in a chair and do nothing. Some of us have no clear picture of where God is leading us today, let alone tomorrow or next week. Some of us secretly hate ourselves, and we figure that God hates us too. Well, my dear friends, if we're being completely honest with ourselves, every one of us can recall a time when we were completely and totally lost. We may be faithful spouses, loving parents, regular churchgoers, and good neighbors, but this doesn't make us immune from feeling lost every once in a while. The problem with Luke's telling of Jesus' story is that he gives us the false impression that some people are lost while others are found. But Jesus' parables don't really work that way. Anytime we feel let off the hook when we read one of Jesus' parables, we're not reading it right. We need to go back and read it again until the parable makes us squirm like worms on a griddle. The truth of today's twin parables is that each of us is a combination of being lost and being found. And the good news is that when the being lost part outweighs the being found part, God will guide us no matter what condition of lostness we're in. God will not give up on us and will search every hill and valley until the good shepherd finds us lost lambs. God will search every nook and cranny of the house until the great caretaker finds us lost coins. Do we hear this good news? Can we claim it for ourselves? It is God's deepest desire for everyone to be found by our Creator. Do you hear me? It is God's deepest desire for everyone to be found by our Creator. And there is no place that we can hide where God cannot find us. There is no crisis of body, mind, or spirit that the Almighty cannot begin to heal. Now that's a message worth sharing with our neighbors and friends from near and far, as we boldly proclaim, "Rejoice with me. I once was lost, but now, by the grace of God, I am found." I close with one of my favorite Psalms that speaks so powerfully on this subject. And this is the Inclusive Bible's translation of Psalm 139, verses 1 through 10. "God, you've searched me and you know me. You know when I am standing or sitting. You read my thoughts from far away. Whether I walk or lie down, you are watching. You are intimate with all of my ways. A word is not even on my tongue, God, before you know what it is. You hem me in before and behind, shielding me with your hand. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me, a height my mind cannot reach. Where could I run from your spirit? Where could I flee from your presence? If I go up to the heavens, you are there. If I make my bed in death, you're already there. I could fly away with wings made of dawn, or make my home on the far side of the sea. But even there, your hand will guide me, your mighty hand holding me fast. My dear friends, let us receive the good news of Jesus, so that when we feel lost in life, we will know beyond a shadow of a doubt that God will find us and lead us home. Amen.